Section 1. The Purest Forms.
Let's kick things off at the very beginning of this journey with the unaged canvas of fresh milk. Fresh cheeses, we're talking ricotta, cottage cheese, quark, fromage blanc, these represent the absolute youngest form cheese can take. They're fleeting, they're vulnerable, and their beauty lies in their absolute simplicity. Because there's literally zero aging involved, and therefore no rind, the flavor is intimately directly tied to the milk it came from. It's a pure culinary canvas. You get this gentle dairy sweetness, just a light touch of acidity, and a texture that can be loose or, as smooth as cream. But there is a catch here. This purity makes them highly perishable. They spoil quickly, usually within a week, demanding to be eaten almost immediately. There's practically nothing standing between the animal and your plate.
Now, sticking with fresh, unaged cheeses for a second, we've got to talk about this wonderfully tactile Italian method called pasta filata. It literally translates to stretch curd. This process is just unlike anything else in cheesemaking. First, the curd is heated in hot water. Then comes the magic. The heated curd is vigorously pulled, folded, and worked by hand until it becomes beautifully smooth and elastic. So the crucial takeaway here is that this stretching actually aligns the milk proteins into long parallel chains. That structural alignment is exactly why mozzarella melts the way it does, pulling into those iconic, mouth-watering threads when it hits a hot pizza. This family also includes incredible cheeses like Provolone, Scamorza, and Caciocavallo.
And when we're talking about mozzarella specifically, the source of the milk dictates everything. True buffalo milk mozzarella from southern Italy? Oh man, it carries a richer, much more profound flavor. It possesses a faint, beautiful tanginess, and this dense, creamy weight that younger, mass-produced cow milk versions simply rarely match. And here's a rule to live by for pasta filata. At its absolute best, this cheese should be eaten the very same day it is made. That is how you fully appreciate its delicate, ephemeral magic.
Section 2. Cultivating the surface.
So, as we move slightly forward in time, we shift our focus to the outside of the cheese. Here, the cheese becomes a literal living ecosystem, and we see how cheesemakers collaborate with nature to cultivate beautiful, sometimes totally paradoxical rinds. Look at this quote. It is a living coat, slowly breaking down the paste beneath it from the outside in. I love this because it shatters a huge misconception. When you look at a wheel of Brie or Camembert, that velvety white exterior is absolutely not decorative. No way. It is a living, breathing, microscopic sculpture called Penicillium camemberti. This mold grows on the surface during aging and actively works its way into the cheese, transforming the texture and the flavor entirely.
This style is known as a Bloomy rind, and it definitely reached its most celebrated form in France. As that living mold does its work, it creates a stunning sensory evolution. The cheese actually starts firm at the center and becomes increasingly soft, even liquid, as it ripens outward toward the rind. A young Bloomy rind tastes kind of like mild butter, but a fully ripe one, it develops these deep, complex notes of damp earth, mushroom, and warm cream. But a quick warning for you. Because this is a living ecosystem, it can die. If you ever detect a sharp ammonia scent, it means the living cheese has finally expired and passed its peak.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredible contradiction of the washed rind cheese. We call it the washed rind paradox. On the exterior, these orange or reddish cheeses produce an aggressive, literal room-clearing smell. This is due to sulfur compounds created by a specific bacterium called Brevibacterium linens. But the paradox that shocks almost everyone is the interior. Once you get past that pungent crust, the paste inside is gentle, incredibly creamy, and surprisingly sweet and mild.
So how did they get this way? By meticulous cultivation. During the aging process, cheesemakers regularly wipe or wash the developing rind with a liquid. This could be a simple salt brine, or it could be local beer, wine, or regional spirits. This constant washing creates the perfect, moist environment to encourage those stinky bacteria to grow. Famous examples include Époisses from Burgundy, Taleggio from northern Italy, and Munster from Alsace. So remember that offensive, pungent smell isn't a defect, it's just the surface doing its vital, transformative work to protect the creamy treasure inside.
Section 3. Veins of flavor.
Let's head even deeper into the aging caves and look at a breathtaking collaboration where cheesemakers must literally invite the air inside the cheese itself. I'm talking, of course, about blue cheese. Those striking blue and green veins running through the paste aren't just there by accident. They are a mold called Penicillium roqueforti. But here is the fascinating twist. This specific mold desperately requires oxygen to grow. So to get the mold to spread throughout a dense wheel of cheese, cheesemakers must physically pierce the cheese, inserting long needles deep into the wheel to open up vital air channels. Without these deliberate needle-punctured pathways, the wild mold cannot breathe and it cannot spread to create those iconic, spicy, complex veins.
And this brilliantly illustrates how terroir, the unique environment of a region, totally shapes the ultimate flavor profile of these oxygen-breathing cheeses. Take Roquefort from France, for example. It's made from sheep's milk and aged in natural, damp limestone caves where this wild mold literally just exists in the air. That gives it an incredibly sharp, wild taste. Then you've got Gorgonzola from Italy, offering a bit of a split personality, a creamy young style or a firmer, sharper, older version. And Stilton from England? It's so revered it is protected by law, restricted to just 3 specific counties, offering flavors that range from mild and buttery all the way to intensely complex.
Section 4. The transitional textures.
We're now entering a sweet middle ground in the aging process. This is the semi-soft family, where the cheese begins to yield to the weight of time but still holds on to some vital characteristics. Semi-soft cheeses sit right between fresh and firm, making them incredibly approachable. They yield easily under a knife, yet they have enough structure to hold their shape on a cheese board. And because they haven't yet dried out from extended aging, their moisture content remains relatively high, keeping their texture beautifully supple. This high moisture is precisely why cheeses like Havarti, Fontina, young Gouda, and Munster melt exceptionally well. They generally offer a mild, buttery flavor with a very clean dairy finish, acting as a really comforting bridge to the older, more intense cheeses.
Section 5. The pinnacle of time.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds, because here is where we need to slow down to reflect the dense, concentrated wisdom and the extraordinary patience required for aging the world's hardest cheeses. The longer a cheese ages, the more moisture it loses through evaporation. What's left behind becomes dense, granular, and intensely concentrated. We start at 0 months with fresh cheese, but look at the legal minimum for Italian Parmigiano Reggiano. It's 12 full months. Push that to 24 months, and a cheese like Comté really hits its stride. And if you have the patience to wait 36 months, an aged Parmigiano achieves an unparalleled, robust character that the younger versions just simply cannot touch.
Just look at the staggering number. 200 distinct aromatic compounds. That is what develops when a wheel of Comté is left to rest for 24 months in the damp mountain cellars of the Jura region in France. The relationship between aging time and flavor complexity becomes totally undeniable here. It essentially transforms simple milk into a symphony. You see this exact same magic in the rich nuttiness of an aged Swiss Gruyere, or the buttery, faintly grassy intensity of a Spanish Merino sheep's milk manchego. Time is the master ingredient here.
Now, if you've ever bitten into a piece of well-aged Pecorino Romano or Grana Padano, you've probably noticed a delightful little crunch in the paste. A lot of people think that crunch is salt. Actually, scratch that, it is absolutely not salt. Those little crystals are tyrosine. As the cheese ages extensively, the proteins slowly break down, releasing the specific amino acid, which then crystallizes. So when you feel that crunch, it is literal, physical proof that the cheese you're eating was aged properly and with the utmost respect for time.
So why does all this matter for your everyday cooking? Well, it comes down to the glutamate factor. As these hard cheeses lose moisture and their proteins break down over the years, they develop some of the highest concentrations of naturally occurring glutamate of any natural food on the planet. And glutamate, that is the pure essence of savory, umami flavor. This dense concentration is exactly why a mere sprinkle of aged Parmigiano or Pecorino completely elevates and transforms a simple plate of pasta or a bowl of soup into something completely extraordinary.
So I leave you with this final thought. Next time you look at a cheese board, will you just see a collection of food? Or will you see the invisible, painstaking work of time, the breathing microbes of nature, and centuries of human tradition? Every single slice holds a deep, emotional history of its landscape and its maker. I really hope this explainer has forever changed how you look at and taste this incredible craft. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep exploring, and I'll see you in our next explainer.